everybody, how you all doing? This is Nim Gholkar bringing you yet another episode of Sydney Social Live. Now, as you all know, Sydney Social Live is a one-of-its-kind, thought-provoking talk show that puts the spotlight on critical social issues, mindset shifts, and behaviors that are shaping our community. Now, you all know that in each episode I bring you a special guest, and today I have with me the very articulate, the incredibly talented Vanessa Venning. Drum roll! Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you.
I hope you're as excited as I am to be on the show.
I am very excited to be here, so thank you so much. And so much so, I have a small gift that I'd like to give you to say thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, we love gifts
you
here.
You might like to...
Beautiful. Can I open it?
You can open it right away.
Awesome.
I didn't do one of those awful knots. Hopefully they will work.
Easy to open, hopefully.
Rip it open.
Okay, we'll try that. Oh, that was easy. All right. This is exciting.
I wonder what it could be.
Wonder what it could be indeed. And in a moment, the mystery is going to be solved. Ooh, this is looking very exciting. Oh my gosh! Your book! Yay! Pivotal Career Moments. That is awesome. Thank you so much. I'll give you a big hug afterwards. We don't want to ruin your mic and all of that. Thank you so much. I will read every word of it and I'll let you know once I'm done. So that is Vanessa's book, Pivotal Career Moments, and we're going to talk about that in just a few moments. Thank you. That is super, and that will go in pride of place in my library.
Oh, thank you.
That is awesome. So Vanessa,
thank you.
I'm just going to read a little bit about you to our lovely audience so that they get to know about the incredible journey you've had so far and the multiple hats you wear. So Vanessa is a leading executive coach, facilitator, presenter, and author. She's worked with hundreds of senior leaders and teams across global businesses. She helps executives to think beyond, to navigate personal and professional change, rediscover career confidence, and design transition strategies for future executive careers, non-executive board, and portfolio careers. Apart from her business, board, and coaching qualifications, Vanessa draws on wisdom gained from a diverse and unique career. Her decades-long corporate career as a people and culture director spanning diverse sectors, as well as her background as a registered nurse, a professional singer, and recording artist. I was right when I said you wear multiple hats, Vanessa. A fun fact, Vanessa created history recording the first multi-track digital single in Australia, entering the National Film and Sound Archives. How amazing! As well as being a television presenter with 7 Network. Vanessa co-authored her first book titled Pivotal Career Moments, How Confidence Can Impact Career Success and What to Do About It. She coaches executives to navigate pivotal career moments, to reconnect with confidence and build resilience to realize career success. My goodness, I am so much in awe of all the amazing things you've done, Vanessa, and you look so incredibly calm whenever I see you. Is there a magic mantra or something that you have to look as collected as you do?
No, I don't think so. I think it's that classic, of that duck on the water and then paddling madly underneath, I think. But I don't want to give it all away.
No. Fair enough. But that is awesome. So we've got lots of very exciting topics lined up for today. Are you ready to dive in?
I think so.
Yes.
Very excited to dive in, yes.
That is awesome. So now that we've done this little opening launch on Sydney Social of Pivotal Career Moments, can you tell our lovely audience a little bit about how this book was born and what was your motivation firstly in writing the book?
Yes, look, I started, as you mentioned, as an executive coach when I was coaching women who were at a particular stage in their career where you would expect them to just have enormous amounts of confidence. And for some reason I was noticing this phenomena that women were experiencing different stages and things that were happening to them in their careers that was creating this confidence decline.
Right.
And I was very curious about that because I was reflecting back on my own journey, and despite your very kind comment, I've certainly struggled with confidence in my career as well.
Who would have thought?
So, and my journey was a lot to do with my journey with menopause as well. So I was very, very curious to find out what was going on with these amazing women. And so after canvassing some friends, some colleagues about this topic, it seemed to be a topic that was of great interest. So my friend, Marianne Perkovic, and I decided to embark on research. And we did quite extensive research with over 120 executives. We then did some deep dive interviews with a number of women, and we've tried to bring their stories to life in support of the research as far as what we found on this journey to support women as they're going through these pivotal career moments. So
that's awesome.
That's how the book came to life.
Wow. And so, sorry, when did you actually release the book? When was it published?
It was just at the end of last year that we finally launched it.
Awesome.
But of course, this year's just taken off with a huge rate of knots, so I feel like I'm talking about it for the first time every time I speak about it.
That's awesome. Now I have a question that's going to segue from there in a moment, but I want to make sure that our lovely viewers, so I've got viewers logging in not just from different parts of Australia, but from India as well and from all over the world. So don't forget to say hi to Vanessa and myself. Just pop in the comments to say hi and which part of the world you're tuning in from, because we'd love to say hi back to you. And as you know, we have a very accomplished guest here. If you have any questions for the lovely Vanessa, please pop those in the comments and we'll do our best, if it's during the live, to answer it while live. If not, then definitely during the recorded version as well. So Vanessa, you mentioned something very interesting about menopause and confidence, and there seems to definitely be a link between those. So could you tell our viewers a little bit more about that link that you see between menopause and confidence?
Yes. So when we think about menopause, for a lot of women, we don't realise the symptoms. There's such a huge array of symptoms.
Yeah.
And some of the symptoms that I experienced firsthand, and then when we've now researched women and through the book, interestingly enough, there's actually the Senate inquiry at the moment into the impacts of perimenopause and menopause for women. So there's a lot more information and research that's coming out. But what we're finding is that some of those symptoms were including things like that brain fog, including those vasodilator symptoms around hot flashes, hot flushes, those things that can actually then disrupt sleep.
Yeah.
And when we talk about things like brain fog, for example, it's a lot to do with the fact that as women we're multitasking, we're keeping everything on track and everything together, and then suddenly things might start to slip. And we can't remember certain things. I got to the stage where I was flat out remembering my children's names.
That's saying something.
And I think this is also what leads a lot of women to worry too.
Yes.
Because these symptoms are as such where you're worrying, is this having some cognitive decline for yourselves? Women tend to retreat when this confidence declines. And so I know from my own personal journey, I wasn't really comfortable in talking about that at all.
Right.
And that's played out in the research as well. We found in the research that we undertook that we had around 65% of women had experienced perimenopausal or menopausal symptoms. Around a quarter of those women had experienced symptoms that they felt had a negative impact on their ability in the workplace, or their own confidence in the workplace to be performing optimally. And over 70% weren't happy talking about it.
Wow.
And I think it makes sense, doesn't it?
It does.
It makes sense because women have fought long and hard to be recognised in their careers. They're doing amazing work. And the thought of that suddenly you're not on top of your game. Now, I want to point out as well that this is our own perceptions. It's not necessarily translating at all into capability or confidence, or capability or competence.
Yes, and I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yes, and this is what we're finding. Women then retreat. They don't talk about it, and this is why it's a bigger issue. I mean, I'm talking about it from an individual perspective, but you think about this from the bigger perspective there's around 70% of women that will go through perimenopause, menopause symptoms, or that natural process during their working career.
Yes, of course. Yes.
So that means that we'll have around 1.6 million Australian women in the workforce as they're experiencing this. Some of the research has indicated that around 10% of women are actually leaving the workforce.
Right.
Because they're not feeling that they can cope with these symptoms. So that equates to 160,000 women that are actually not finding this journey very comfortable to be working at the levels that they were working at.
That's a phenomenal number.
It's a big number.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that's really disturbing as well, and which is why there is this Senate inquiry to really delve into the impacts of perimenopause and menopause, is that the Macquarie Business School has done some research to indicate that this equates to around $17 billion a year in lost earnings and superannuation.
Wow. It all adds up?
It all adds up. And for women at that stage of their lives to lose
yes, of course,
that income, that has an impact on their financial security. So it's a broader, bigger socioeconomic issue. It's a macroeconomic issue, you know. So
and I'm so glad you've put the spotlight on it, because again, we need more conversations happening around this topic, isn't it?
We do.
Yeah.
And I think that I guess because I'm in the space, I'm seeing that there's more conversations happening.
Good.
However, there's still a lot more that can happen. There's a lot. I've been talking to a number of people in senior human resources roles, for example, and there's still this uncertainty around, well, what can we do in our organisations to help support women through this?
Yes.
And I think personally my biggest fear out of this Senate inquiry is that there's going to be some policy setting around menopause leave. And in actual fact, in my spare time, I've gone through a lot of the submissions for the Senate inquiry.
What spare time?
I went to the public hearings and I listened to what people were saying, and overwhelmingly, women don't want to cast the light on themselves to say, here we are, we've got a problem now, we want leave. I think women want the opportunity to be able to get the right support, whether that be the holistic and medical support that can help them navigate through this. But also I think there's a lot that can be done in helping to support women back where we started in that confidence journey.
Absolutely.
To know that they can get through this.
Yes, which is so important. Now, we've definitely covered a lot of ground when it comes to menopause and confidence. What else did you find in your research when you were going about collecting, your information and data for this book?
Yes, so and menopause really in the book is a very small part. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Firstly, I think the statistic that stood out for me the most in our research was that 89% of the women that we asked that question around, who is more confident, men or women, and 89% said that men were more confident than women. So 89%.
Wow.
And 67% of men agreed. So that was probably, I think, that overarching statistic that made us realise that this is something that needed to be researched further, and what was happening at that point. So what we found, and I guess hence the title of the book called Pivotal Career Moments, is that when you look at a person's career, that there tends to be those moments that have an impact. Now those impacts could be to do with mergers and takeovers or changes in leadership or something that happens within, or a redundancy, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it could also be something as part of our life stage. It could be menopause, as we've just been discussing.
Yeah.
It could be ageing parents.
Yes.
Other issues to do with health and well-being. We know, breast cancer is still a big issue for women, prostate cancer for men. So there's many triggers in terms of what we've called pivotal career moments.
Right.
What we're finding though is that there's this pivotal career moment and then this confidence snowball, this decline slowly sets off. And we've used this analogy of a snowball because to me when you think about that snowball, just the quiet little snowball trotting along, no one's taking that much notice of it. And then slowly over time it's building, it's getting bigger and bigger, and suddenly it starts to get out of control. And that's what we were finding, that there's certain aspects that are creating what we've what we've called a career avalanche, actually.
Great way to describe it.
So, but there's 3 key areas that we found that underpin confidence or can have, I guess, the biggest impact around confidence. So the first one is around psychologically safe work environments. And psychological safety, I mean, we've been talking about that quite a lot now, but this is right even to those microaggressions, you know, the throwaway comments, the
snide
joke,
remarks,
the snide remark, and that can just set that self-confidence off, especially if we're already going through a pivotal career moment. So, so workplace environments, it's very important for us to navigate and understand what's happening there. The other part is around well-being.
Yes.
And well-being, and this is where in the book we've included menopause as part of that whole well-being category. But when you think about well-being, I know we hear a lot about well-being around our physical health and around our mental well-being and our mental health. It's interesting when we start to lose confidence, we take our eye off the ball around our own health and well-being. So it's really important. You think about things like sleep, you know, lack of sleep and the impact that has on our ability to cope with the day, even just any day. But if we're seeing the signs, in fact, it's an interesting one, health and well-being, because that's where the signs of a confidence decline start.
Correct. Yes.
That stress, that anxiety, that interrupted sleep, that sense of self-doubt, that negative self-talk, that whole mental picture that where we're positioning ourselves, and certainly a lack of self-compassion.
Very important.
That happens in that. So that's in that whole well-being category. So workplace in terms of psychological safety, well-being in terms of all of those factors, and last but not least is the role of our support crew. And I mentioned before how women in particular tend to isolate themselves. They lose that confidence and then they retreat. They don't necessarily reach out and want to talk about that. And that's where we found the importance of the support crew. So in terms of support crew, I mean, I guess what does that really mean?
Yes, what does it mean? I mean, support crew sounds like a really great term, but tell us a bit more about that.
It's interesting because from a professional context, that could be mentors, it could be people in your work environments that might be able to provide that support. It might be professional associations. So there's lots of different mentor opportunities out there, places like mentor walks, for example. So that's where you can identify who do I actually really need to help support me for the particular areas of this journey that I'm at. And they'll change over time depending on where that support is that you need. But I think one of the other aspects is that isolation and loneliness is so damaging. In fact, loneliness is becoming a health epidemic.
Yes. That's the only way to describe it.
It really is. And so when you think about support crew, I like to also think about where's the people around you that bring you joy? Where are the groups? Where's the interests that can actually create those networks of people that provide that circuit breaker, that are there to get to know you and the wonderful things that you bring to the equation. And for example, I joined, in fact this was thanks to my wonderful neighbour who introduced me to the Humming Song Choir. So that's one of my support networks. It brings me great joy on a Monday evening to go to rehearsals.
Sounds great.
Be with this wonderful group of women. That's an example of that support crew as well.
I love the sound of a support crew, and like Vanessa said, it's so important for us to reach out and get that crew together, right? And whether that's mentors or someone at work who can give you that support, it is so important. And I'm glad you again brought that up. You mentioned something earlier about self-compassion. And I think that's an incredibly important point that I'd really love you to expand on, please, for our viewers.
Self-compassion is a really interesting topic in itself. I think a lot of people misunderstand what self-compassion actually is and the importance of it. And I think we all tend to, I don't know about you, Nim, but when we're growing up, sometimes we tend to get that feedback that it's just like, look, don't stop thinking about yourself, just get on with it, you know?
Yeah.
But we do have to stop and actually think about, are we actually looking after ourselves? What's the best thing we need to do for ourselves? Now, there's a lot of wonderful research. Dr. Kristen Neff has done some wonderful research in and around the concepts of self-compassion. And we also talk about it in the book because it's a very important strategy to help in the rebuilding of confidence. But we look at that in two ways, and that's about that tender self-compassion, which is like how, treat yourself how you would treat your friend, a very dear friend.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you think about the things, that negative self-talk that can sometimes go in your mind, and you might be thinking, gosh, I'm stupid, and why am I doing this, and how ridiculous, and I can't believe I let that slip, and for goodness sake, get it together, girl, all of those horrible things that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
And then if you stop and think, if I was sitting there with you, Nim, I'm not going to be saying, get it together, girl.
That's right.
Get out there.
Yeah.
You're being stupid with this. So I think this is the concept. I'd be horrified. I'd never speak to my friend like that.
But
so
we would to ourselves, wouldn't we? Yeah.
We do it to ourselves.
Yeah.
So there's tender self-compassion, and then there's fierce self-compassion. And fierce self-compassion is around creating the right boundaries around ourselves.
Yeah.
A little bit like, when we talked about that psychologically safe environment.
Yeah.
What do we put up with? At some point, what do we need to do to say, this is my boundary and this is what I'm not going to accept?
Yeah.
Because I'm letting myself down by not putting the right type of boundaries around me.
Yeah.
And defending those fiercely to make sure that I'm actually true to myself and looking after myself as well. So the interesting thing again with the research is that self-compassion, there's a wonderful quiz that you can do. Dr. Kristen Neff has got on her website, and she actually, it's demonstrated through all of the evidence that she's gathered that women are nowhere near as self-compassionate as men. So yet again, there tends to be this tendency where women do tend to be harder on themselves.
Yes. And very often when we are being hard on ourselves and saying those negative affirmations, they turn into self-fulfilling prophecies. And very often we manifest those things that we're hoping will not happen, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
And when you think about it from a neuroscience perspective, if we tell ourselves over and over again those same messages, our brain doesn't necessarily tell the difference between what's true.
Absolutely.
It knows to be true because you've told it that
Yes,
it's
with
true.
such conviction.
Such conviction. And over again, and those neural pathways are just being embedded in our mind.
Yeah.
That this is where we are.
Yes.
And that's, again, where that self-compassion is so important to help build new neural pathways to those positive centres of our brain to be able to really feel energised about ourselves and really aware of the negative patterns, by the way, because a lot of this happens unconsciously.
Absolutely.
And automatically.
Yes.
It's one of those habits. So how do we become aware of it? How do we put some, as you say, how do we actually now mindfully talk about ourselves in a kind, considerate, positive way?
Yeah. It's all about the stories we tell ourselves, isn't it? On a subconscious level. And the danger is they are on a subconscious level. And that's why we're often not aware. we're going to go into our rapid fire round. And Amber Tandon says that these are very interesting and important topics. Thanks, Amber. And I'm so glad we have Vanessa here to shed some light on these much needed topics that we really need to create more awareness around. So Vanessa, typically on Sydney Social Live, once we've talked about these topics that we've just done, we move into what is known as a rapid fire round.
Ooh, I've heard about this.
So these are just some very fun, quick questions, nothing too stressful, so all will be well. So are we ready?
I think I'm ready. Okay.
All right, just quickly, tea or coffee?
Am I allowed to say both or not?
Well, push to the wall. Could you pick one?
Coffee. I start the day with coffee.
Yay!
Start the day with coffee.
Let us know if you're a coffee lover as well, like Vanessa and myself. I love my coffee. So there you go. You're still on my Christmas card list.
Oh, good. Okay.
All right. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning person.
Is that right? Okay. So after sunset, it's all downhill, is it?
Yes, pretty much. No, I shouldn't say it like that. But I do find there's something about the morning that brings great energy for me.
Yeah.
And if I can, I'm an exercise person too. Love exercising in the morning. Yeah. So that's my go-to routine.
Oh, nice. The mornings are when you are at your creative best as well. Yes. It's a bit
absolutely.
like me.
Yes. Unlike my daughter, by the way, who's just done another all-nighter getting assignments done. So she certainly doesn't get that from me. No.
Books or movies? Movies, okay.
Movies.
So if there was a book that was turned into a movie, would you watch the movie first, you reckon, or you'd like to read the book first?
I've done both.
Right.
I've done both, especially when someone said to me, you must read the book first before you see the movie.
Right, yes.
Do you know what? I think it says a lot about me. I'm quite impatient, and I find that getting time to read and get through the book, sometimes the fact that it can be summarised in that movie.
Exactly, and you want to keep turning to the last page to find out who was the killer.
That's right. Or a mini-series.
Okay.
I loved Lessons in Chemistry.
I haven't watched that. No.
I can confess I didn't read the book, but I loved it. I think it was about 8 episodes in that one.
Okay,
so.
That's a decent length. That's watchable, right? Sometimes they're too long and then you lose interest along the way. All right, another question. Stilettos or flats?
Flats.
Is that right?
For me. Look, back in the 80s, I was rocking those high heels. But you know what? I think it's COVID. I don't know about you, but I ended up with like Neanderthal feet. Wearing slippers through COVID.
Yes.
And then I opened up my shoe drawer and it was like, no, sorry.
Never again.
You just can't do it. So anyway, I've been out and bought a whole range of my leather sand shoes.
That's it. It's all about comfort over fashion
comfort.
Sometimes, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one. Now, we have a huge chunk of Sydney Social Live tuning in, as I said, from India and the Indian diaspora here in Australia. So are you familiar with Indian food, Indian cuisine at all?
Well, I am. I'm probably just scraping the surface here. But Murg Makhani.
Oh, yes.
Butter chicken.
Yum.
That's a family favourite for ours, for our household as well.
Yeah.
And my husband's actually doing an amazing job. He's found this fabulous recipe, so he's actually been in charge of cooking butter chicken. But palak paneer is actually one of my favourites.
And you're seeing it just amazing. The pronunciation is all great.
But I do like that. But that's probably not so much a family favourite. That's my favourite.
Your personal favourite.
My personal favourite. But I have to say, and I'm not too sure whether there's many of our viewers from the Sunshine Coast in Queensland.
Big shout out to you if you're logging in from the Sunshine Coast.
And I just wanted to make a big shout out because my parents live on the Sunshine Coast.
Nice.
And we found, they've only been there for a little while, so we found this incredible restaurant in Little Mountain called Bombay Bliss.
Bombay Bliss.
And every time we go up, every time I go up, and I'm actually flying up at 6 a.m. in the morning, so I'll be visiting Bombay Bliss next week. So just a big shout out to Bombay Bliss.
Yeah.
That's actually my parents are in their 80s and they're experiencing Indian food really for the first time in its, with all its beautiful spices and flavors.
How lovely. So lovely viewers, next time you're on the Sunshine Coast and you feel like eating a bit of Indian, Bombay Bliss it is. That's awesome.
And I'm not getting paid for that. That's not a paid endorsement.
That's just someone who's been there, tasted the food, and believes that it is really, that's right.
It's a review.
So Vanessa, thank you so much. I could talk to you forever, as you know. Whenever I'm talking to Vanessa, I could just keep talking for the rest of my life because there's so much one can gather from this lovely lady who's, like I said, she does amazing work. Oh. And what spare time is she talking about? She mentioned that earlier in the show, and I'm like, she's catching a 6 a.m. flight. She's here with me doing this today. She's got other things later this evening. What spare time? But before we sign out, would you like to say any last parting words to our lovely viewers?
I would, and thank you so much for joining, and thank you again, Nim, for the opportunity. But I think just a couple of takeaways, and we haven't talked about this yet, but the meaning of the word confidence comes from the Latin roots confetio, and that's about trust. So it's about trust in ourselves, trust in who we are, not comparing ourselves to other people, but trust in ourselves and our own abilities. Yeah. So I think that's one very important takeaway. I hope you think about for yourselves. And I think self-compassion. Yeah. Please take that on board. I think that's very, very important. So hopefully that's self-compassion. And then just think about, what do you need to do to fill your confidence cup? How can you look after yourself? What do you need to do? What's that chatter that's going on? How can you challenge that? But what are some of the things that bring you joy? And how can you recognise those wonderful strengths that you have, and to really fill that confidence cup for you?
Awesome, awesome. I just noticed a comment from one of our regular viewers. Sujata says she's been to Bombay Bliss when she was up there. So there you go. There's another person who vouches for the food there. And she's also said what you've just shared is amazing takeaways for them, which is great. Thanks, Sujata.
Thank you for tuning in.
Absolutely. So those of you who've only just joined us halfway through and you've missed what Vanessa shared at the start, please do check out the recorded version so you'll get to hear her entire story. And if you have any questions or insights that you'd like to share, please do in the comments section, and I'm sure Vanessa would love to respond. So thank you once again, Vanessa. Like I said, this could go on forever, but time constraints and all that. But it has been an absolute joy chatting with you on Sydney Social Live.
Thank you.
Thank you
very
much
for having me. Thank you.
And thank you,
everybody.
Lovely viewers. As always, you spend a slice of your Sunday with us, and I know Sundays are really, really precious, so I do appreciate you being here with us. I hope you have a lovely week ahead, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
See ya.